my question is about the possibility of the war between Iran and the United States in the Middle East, because I don't believe that Israel would be able to fight a war with Iran alone. And here is what Steve Bannon said about the nature of the conflict in the Middle East and how he feels about the war.
What did Netanyahu have to do? He totally trumped up, bald-faced lie about the Persians. They had greater strategic ambitions, and they didn't care if they sucked the United States into a 20 or 30-year war. Those days are over. President Trump has asserted himself that, hey, you are a protector. What did Ignatius say? He's given orders, right? He's given orders the way it should be. If they want to go do it on their own, hey, God bless you. Go for it. But do not suck us in. We're not in for this. It's outrageous what has happened over the last couple of years, and we still don't have an investigation on October 7th. And believe me, if the hands were clean of Netanyahu, you would have had an investigation and been out in 30 days. Write that down with your number 2 pencil, because that's going to come and you're going to be shocked by it. There's no way that just kind of happened.
Yeah. Netanyahu had an interview yesterday or the day before. He said that Iran has increased the range of missiles to 8,000 kilometers. They want to hit New York, Mar-a-Lago, and they want to kill. What's going on, Scott? When you look at the situation in the Middle East, what is your understanding, your take on that?
Look, at the Iranian president himself has said that he believes that Israel is going to strike again, and that Iran is prepared for this. I don't share that conclusion, if for no other reason, is that you have to ask yourself, remind yourself that Israel's the one that picked up the phone and begged Donald Trump for this ceasefire and a 12-day war. Now, Iran was glad enough to have it because, they were subjected to a Pearl Harbor type event that took out their senior military leadership. And, the Israelis pulled all the tricks out of the bag with these secret drone fleets and, coming through Azerbaijani airspace to attack the undefended rear of Tehran and, Parchan and all that defense industry that exists there to the southeast of Tehran. All of this was hit by the Israelis to great effect. I mean, Iran got hit hard. There's no doubt about it. But Iran recovered. And by the end of the war, the Israeli aircraft, the Iranians have published some interesting interviews with their pilots. Wait a minute, Iran still has pilots? I thought the Israelis took out the entire Iranian Air Force, because where was the Iranian Air Force during this 12-day war? Doing their job. And apparently the Iranian Air Force, including those old F-14s, and some old F-4s, were locking in on the Israeli aircraft as they were doing their attack run, because the Israelis were using primarily these blue streak, air-launched missiles. But to do that, you've got to basically fly an attack route. And as they were doing that before weapons release, the Iranian Air Force would lock on, causing the Israelis to break the attack. Now, they weren't getting shot down, but they weren't able to complete their mission. And the Iranians were disrupting the Israeli attacks. It wasn't as one-sided as everybody makes it out to be. And what we do know, too, is that the Iranians had overcome the Israeli ballistic missile defense shield. By the end of the war, the Iranians were hitting targets that were causing Israel great pain. The Israelis are starting to come out and sort of admit that there were more targets hit than they're admitting, and it did cause them a lot of concern. And the senior leadership was telling Netanyahu, if we continue, they're really, really, really going to mess us up. Really going to mess us up. We have to stop this war now. We have lost control of the outcome. So now we come to the present. What has changed? Has Israel's ballistic missile defense shield changed? One of the things that there's a very interesting book written by a British technical intelligence guy about World War II, and I just had the name of the book on the tip of my tongue, The War and Secret, A Secret War, or something of that nature. But it's about the technical intelligence. But basically, each side investigates the capabilities, the other reverse engineers things, and then comes up, that's how we got radar, German radar, British radar. That's how things happen. And I was introduced to this book by Israeli technical intelligence officers who were working during the Gulf War. And basically, the Iraqis were firing in their Al-Hussein missiles. And then later on, they threw in the short Al-Hussein, which is a different variation, and the Al-Hijara. And each one had different aspects to it, mating rings, different configurations and all that. And the Israelis would take these debris and put it in this consolidated area they ended up calling the Scud Museum. And I got to go to the Scud Museum and see it, and I talked to the Israelis that did that. But the point is, they studied every aspect of the Iranian Scud, looking for vulnerabilities, looking for differences to try and understand, what was going on. There can be no doubt in my mind that the Israelis did the same thing as a result of this most recent, the 12-day war. But what did they learn? You see, the Iranians started the conflict by firing their 20 and 30-year-old missiles, just drowning out the system, overwhelming the system. But these were capabilities already known to the Israelis because there was True Promise 1 and True Promise 2. The Israelis collected the debris from. So, they were familiar. But near the end of the war, Iran started deploying different missiles, either older missiles with new warhead configurations or newer hypersonic missiles. And these were having great effect. But the Israelis, of course, will be looking at the radar data, the telemetry data, MASENT, all the different clues they can come in, including the physical debris on the ground. And they're doing that. But Iran didn't deploy all of their systems. And what was happening at the end of the war is Iran would start to introduce a new system that just cut through their defenses like a hot knife through butter. Bam, took down a building. The Israelis don't know anything about these. They don't have enough data. They don't have a solution. And Iran has been building newer and newer and newer missiles. I'll let you on to, I can't call it a secret because the Iranians don't tell me anything. But my assessment is that, because they was like, why doesn't Russia sell the Iranians the Oreshnik missile? If the Russians are really good friends of Iran, they'd give Iran the Oreshnik missiles. And the Iranians are going, oh, we got it. We don't call it Oreshnik, but it does the same thing. They got it. And there's nothing Israel can do about it. So when you look at this, Israel can't defend itself any better than what it did, and that wasn't good enough. Iran's attack capabilities are far greater than what they demonstrated in the 12-day war. Not only that, Iran has shut down the Israeli, I got people walking in the background, shut down the Israeli, the Mossad's drones. They're not going to get to do that game again. Those drone factories have been overcome. The Israelis have broken that ring. You're not going through Azerbaijani airspace anymore to take over an undefended rear because the Russians have sent advanced MiG-29 fighters and there's other new fighters and missiles. They've shut that down. Iran has solidified its defenses, continues to have this tremendous offensive strike capability, and Israel's offensive capability hasn't improved, neither has their defensive capability. So why would Israel be encouraging going to war with Iran that common sense dictates they're going to lose? Now, is America going to jump in on it? You talked about tankers and airplanes flowing in. Every single one of the bases that these American aircraft would operate from are vulnerable to Iranian ballistic missile interdiction. And there's nothing that can stop them. There's no American defense system that can stop them. So what's in it for America? Humiliation? Defeat? So I'm not one of these people that think that war is automatic. I think there's a lot of bluffing going on, a lot of posturing going on. But I don't think that war is automatic because unless there's something new to offer that reasserts Israeli superiority, and it isn't the inclusion of American firepower, Israel's going to lose that war, straight up lose that war. And that's why the Iranian president, when he spoke to journalists last week, I guess, in New York, I had the honor and privilege of being there to listen to him and ask some questions. He was confident. I didn't see a scared man. I didn't see a worried man. I saw a man who, was serious, and very confident in the strength of his nation and the strength of his government. He said they could try decapitation if they wanted to. He said He says, there's 6 of me. He said, you kill me, we got one already picked. You kill him, we got one already picked. We go down 6 layers. You can't kill us all, and we're all on the same side. That was the one message that came across, because one of the things that appeared to be trying, that the West and Israel have been trying to do, is fracture Iran, get Iran to break up in constituent parts based upon ethnicities, etc., to break the Azeris away, to break the Kurds away, to break the Arabs away, the Baluch, etc., even to fracture the Persians among tribal lines or economic lines. And the Iranian president said that there were some serious fractures in Iran. He said he sort of was honest. He said, we made some mistakes. I mean, he talked about women like I've never heard an Iranian leader talk about before, about how, we have gender issues that have to be addressed. I think that's why we're seeing photographs today of women running around Tehran without hijabs on, because I think the Iranians are going, this is an artificial problem we don't need. We need, we can pacify a good percentage of the population if we just say no to hijabs. And he said, we're doing that. We're re-looking how we deal with gender issues, the whole thing. But he said, the 12-day war, he said, there's no more fractures. He said, Iran has come together like it's never come together before. People were trying to take advantages of differences of opinion between the government and the supreme leader. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for all you people out there saying, well, wait a minute, it's a theocratical dictatorship. If the supreme leader says so, it must be so. No, so. Actually, Iran is far more complicated than that. There's got a parliament that was elected by the people. They got a constitution. There's things that happen. And the president is actually very influential and very powerful, by the way. And yes, there were differences between the president and the supreme leader. Not anymore. He says they are on the same sheet of music. Everybody is marching to the same tune. Anybody that thinks they're going to, take advantage of Iran and break it up needs to think again. And this is why I don't think there's going to be a war, because one thing I learned about the Israelis is they can have the worst policy in the world, and they do, but they're not stupid. They're not stupid about the world they live in. And the Israelis have deep insights into Iran, deep insights. And they may have, look, anybody who is intimately knowledgeable of Iran, I don't want to put you in a spot, but would you, before the 12-day war, I bet you had, I would bet a dime to a dollar that you saw fractures between the Iranian president and the leadership, and you were seeing fractures in Iranian society, a lot of criticism towards the Iranian president coming from the parliament. You saw that. I saw that. And I wasn't dismissive of it. I don't think you were either, because it's reflective of reality. And, it creates uncertainty. The Israelis saw the same thing. So you can't blame the Israelis into believing that if they could facilitate certain actions inside Iran, that Iran was susceptible to fracturing. But those same people now, look, Iran's been super glued together. And I mean, this is high quality super glue. It ain't going away. And the Israelis know this. The Israelis aren't very good at self-deception. They do things because they are confident in outcomes. They're willing to lie about things. They're willing to commit crimes. But underneath, the Israelis, at the end of the day, are realists, very much so. And I think the realists who are advising Netanyahu about Iran are telling him and telling the Mossad leaders, Mossad's very well plugged into Iran, saying the conditions that we were hoping would manifest themselves during the 12-day war back in June, they no longer exist. In fact, if we try, it's going to backfire on us. So Netanyahu says a lot of things for political reasons, for political posturing, and the statements that he made against, about why would he make that statement? You have to ask yourself, why would he come out in a cartoon-like manner? They got big missiles. They fly 8,000 miles. They can hit Mar-a-Lago. They're going to target you, Donnie, baby. You in Mar-a-Lago. That place you like down in Florida. They're going to hit you with this big missile, this big-ass missile. I mean, it was stupid. Why would he do that? He's panicked, because the reality is they punched Iran with everything they had. And Iran still stood. I mean, imagine going to a bar, looking at this guy saying, all right, I'm going to cold cock him. That's how I'm going to win this fight. Just going to come up and bam, he's going down, and bam with everything. And he turns around and goes, ouch. All right, let's go. And he starts coming after you. You just gave him the best punch. You don't have a better punch. That didn't knock him out. That's Israel right now. They hit Iran with everything they had. And Iran's still standing and started coming after them. And they had to call pause on the bar fight. Why would Israel want to start a bar fight with that same person? Their punch has only gotten weaker. And that guy's been lifting weights and getting a little bit stronger ever since. So I'm not somebody who believes I could be dead wrong. We could wake up tomorrow and find the Israelis attacking Iran, and that's it. But when I look at everything in the aggregate, I don't see the immediate risk of war.
You mentioned how fragile is the situation of Netanyahu, and they're not winning. And
No.
is that going to influence their decision to be more sane when it comes to what the Trump administration is trying to put on the table, or they're going to go, just take the hostages and continue the same sort of attitude as we've seen so far?
Netanyahu is a political animal, and his only path to political viability is continued conflict. The moment there's peace, the Israelis will turn on him in a heartbeat, have him arrested, put on trial for corruption and for other crimes too. I mean, Steve Bannon hinted that October 7th hasn't been fully investigated, and there's a chance that when it is, Netanyahu will be found to be wanting on a number of fronts. So either he goes into exile, and maybe that's why his son's spending so much time in Miami, picking out where his dad's going to retire. Or he's going to die in an Israeli prison. That's his fate if there's peace. But he has tremendous political pressures put on him because of the hostage situation. But the people who are arguing for the political conditions to be created that allow for the release of hostages, they're not people supportive of a two-state solution or one. They're not pro-Palestinian. They're just frustrated that the hostages are still out there. So once the hostages are released, what's the next step for Netanyahu? Does he really want peace? And there's plenty of opportunity for him to make mischief on this as well. And we still don't know if Hamas is going to live up, but I think Hamas, let's just take a step back. The counter proposal that Hamas put out there that Trump endorsed is pretty much what Hamas has been saying all along. There's no major deviation. There's no oh my God, this happened. A government of technocrats, inclusive of Fatah, Hamas will accept that as long as Hamas has a presence. And the president didn't say no. Hamas said, we can disarm. They've said that in the past. But the disarmament has to be linked to, several things, including, one of the things that hasn't been discussed, which is security guarantees for Hamas, because Israel has said they know no red lines. They'll bomb anything, everything if they determine. So, the danger here isn't Hamas. The danger here is Israel. And under normal circumstances, I would say, therefore, this peace chance has no chance of success whatsoever, this peace opportunity. But we don't live under normal circumstances because there's a different dynamic taking place that never existed before. Israel's losing support of the United States of America, not of the president, of the people. Donald Trump has said that the Israeli control of the U.S. Congress is diminished significantly. The whole Charlie Kirk thing shows that Christian evangelicals were starting to question why we continue to support Israel the way we do. America first starts to mean America first, not America second after Israel. Ted Cruz's blind, slavish obedience to Israel, fealty to Israel, is not mainstream anymore. The idea of an American senator saying, I joined the Senate to serve Israel, That doesn't fly very well in an America First environment. And this isn't, chipping away at a solid granite edifice. I mean, we see support for Israel melting away. And this president, Trump, has invested a tremendous amount of political capital into this peace plan, a tremendous amount. And if Israel sabotages this, I think it's the end of Israel, because I think what will happen is MAGA will turn on Israel. And that's it. It's over at that point in time. And Netanyahu has to know that too. And it's for that reason, hesitantly optimistic that this peace plan stands a chance. Not because Trump believes in peace. Trump believes in the Nobel Peace Prize, which he's trying to posture himself to receive. But that's okay. I don't care what your motivations are if the outcome's just and the outcome's good. But if you go back to when October 7th started, I actually wrote an article that got me under a lot of trouble. I called it the greatest military raid in modern history, and it was. It's not a terrorist attack. It's a military raid to achieve discernible outcomes. And the outcomes were predicated on Israel being sucked into a conflict in Gaza that exposed the reality of Israel to the world. The mowing the grass Dahiwa doctrine was known. No one ever could have imagined that Israel would have gone to these extremes, but they did. I mean, to actually be labeled as genocidal by the world. They did this also to free Palestinians being held by Israel. That's why they took hostages as a tip to put on that table. Here they have the chance of getting 1,200, including Barghouti. His name's on the list. This is what they wanted, and they also wanted to create the possibility of a Palestinian state. On October 6th, nobody was talking about a Palestinian state. Nobody. Today, one of the key aspects of this peace treaty is a Palestinian state, a two-state solution. You have European nations recognizing a Palestinian state. If this ain't a Hamas victory, nothing is. Hamas was never going to be planting the flag over Jerusalem and the flag over Tel Aviv. The Knesset was not going to fall to a Hamas assault team. Hamas wins by achieving exactly what we talked about, destroying the reputation of Israel so that the world understands the brutal reality of Israel, the genocidal reality of Israel, to isolate Israel, to free the Palestinians held hostage by the Israelis, and to open the door to create the possibility of a Palestinian state inclusive of Hamas representation. I think we're looking at the potential of a Hamas victory. Now, Netanyahu will never be able to admit that. Neither will Donald Trump. But people in the know, people who've been looking at this issue all, I think Sinwar would be happy with this outcome.